it's Annabelle and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're unboxing a couple of quite rare orchids, and these are orchids from Ecuagenera, which is a company based in Ecuador which is dedicated to kind of conservation of orchids and propagation. They have a lot of very interesting species and as well as hybrids. Now, just to kind of preface this unboxing with a little bit of background information about buying orchids from different regions and different areas to yours, because I get asked about this quite a lot. So I've never ordered from Ecuagenera before, which is outside the European Union. I do, however, order a lot from nurseries within the European Union. I think I get a lot of questions from people, particularly in Canada, about this because we have similar import laws and regulations. However, the difference here is that within the UK, we have been part of the European Union and we have trade agreements within the European Union. I'm not going to comment on the B word. So what that has meant is that there's pretty much free movement of plants across EU countries, which the UK is a part of, or was a part of. So up until obviously recently, when rules are going to be starting to change, I'm not sure of any details of that, so I can't comment on that. But we have had free movement of plants because of the trade agreement that we've had with the European Union. So I have been free to order orchids from Poland, Germany, France, Spain, Italy, right across the European Union. Outside of the European Union, it starts to count as like a different country. So for example, me ordering from Ecuador would be the same as someone from Canada ordering from a different country. So outside the European Union, different countries, you then have to import the plants into the European Union to be able to buy them in the UK or import to the UK. So what this means is the seller will have to complete certain conservation documents called CITES. Now this is conservation to state that you are not bringing in plants from the wild, because obviously a lot of orchid species are endangered, and as orchid collectors, as orchid enthusiasts, if we were to buy orchids from the wild, that's pretty much going against everything that we are enjoying, because you're essentially contributing to destruction of a species rather than conservation and enjoying growing these beautiful plants. That side of the hobby conflicts with nature, and obviously all of our orchids that we have now, it's because people did this to start with and they took plants from the wild. But that continuing to go on is actually causing a lot of species to become endangered to the point of almost extinction. Along with destruction of natural habitats. So I want to kind of say very strongly that if you're importing plants, you need to be absolutely certain that you are not potentially importing plants from the wild, or that have been obtained from the wild. They need to have been obtained through reputable sources that have grown these orchids up from seed in captivity, essentially, in a home setting or a lab setting or nursery setting, essentially not from the wild. So I just want to be super clear on that, because I do definitely completely agree with the premise behind CITES, and that is the conservation document that you need to obtain to be able to get orchids from a different country to your region. You also need to obtain phytosanitary documents to ensure that you are not bringing pests into your country, and export documents that the seller needs to obtain. So those three documents, the CITES, the phytosanitary and the export documents, are all the seller's responsibility. Now often they will incur a charge from you, because the process of getting all of those is not too expensive, but it costs the seller time and money to be able to do, so they will often charge you for doing that. Then to bring the plants into your country, you as a buyer, in the UK at least, and this is something that differs from different regions, so please do check your regulations, you need to procure an import permit and certificate. I've done this before and essentially made the mistake of trying to get the import permit retrospectively. So you are supposed to apply for the import permit before your plants have shipped. I've done this once before, and this is why I kind of have a little bit of insight into this process. I found some plants from an eBay seller in Thailand. He was a nursery. I spoke to him quite extensively before placing an order. He had lots and lots of hybrids, no species, that I was very interested in, Vandaceous hybrids, really interesting Vandaceous hybrids. And he was quite happy to do all the imports, export stuff. So he procured CITES, phytosanitary and export certificates his end, and I applied with DEFRA and Peach in the UK for an import permit. However, I did this after the plants had already shipped, and you are supposed to do it before. So my plants were confiscated by UK customs and destroyed. So I did that incorrectly, and there was a penalty for that, which was the destruction of the plants. The CITES, phytosanitary and export certificates that the seller provided were all completely perfect. I had confirmation of this from the customs department. They were all in order. It was the fact that I hadn't secured the import permit that was the issue, and that's why the plants got destroyed. I accept responsibility for that, and I have learnt from it, and I wouldn't say that I will never order plants that way again, but I would certainly probably actually phone and speak to the customs, DEFRA, Peach, CITES before importing plants in future, because it's a very confusing process. Here in the UK, they do not make it straightforward, and it almost, when you go onto their website to apply for these, it almost makes it sound like you only have to apply for it if you're a business, which is why I didn't do it beforehand. And it's only after checking it after my plants are shipped that I realised that I had to, and did it, and then obviously there was a big problem. So it's very unclear to a beginner. So I would advise always try and buy plants from within your region. So within the US, that's probably the US and Hawaii, that sort of thing. Within Canada, I think you are quite restricted to Canada only. I'm not sure about other countries' regulations. I've tried to get my head just around the UK one and obviously failed at that. So, how have I got a parcel from Ecuagenera in Ecuador to the UK? Well, previously, before the COVID situation, Ecuagenera would ship to shows, and then from shows, contacts within the areas could ship out to your country, or you can collect from shows. Obviously, with the COVID situation, that has completely been postponed. So, Ecuagenera have now set up a system where they ship and deal with all the export, phytosanitary, CITES and stuff their end. They ship to a vendor in the EU, in Germany. And I didn't know who this was, but I now know, having had this parcel, that for this particular occasion, the vendor that they shipped to was Rolk. Rolk have dealt with the import and everything their end. There was a small charge of $2.5 per plant for this service, plus the shipping charge of $20. It was all done in dollars, but so in total I paid $25 for shipping, import, export, phytosanitary and CITES. And I haven't had to deal with any of the hassle. They've done it all for me. They and Rolk have communicated between them, sorted all that, and Rolk has shipped on to me. I haven't had to do anything. All I had to do was give them my address and they sorted it all out for me. So that's pretty good. One thing I should say is there's a chance that these plants aren't in the best condition. They've been in transit for a couple of weeks now. Actually, the date of shipping is on here and it said the 30th of July. At the moment, Ecuagenera are doing shipments out once per month at the end of every month. Now, I know that this has been quite a long introduction, but I really wanted to get that out of the way. We only have 2 plants in this box. I really wanted to explain that very thoroughly to kind of inform you and explain how this has happened and why I've managed to get this. This isn't always so straightforward if you're not dealing with like a nursery that can communicate with a nursery within your area and they've got loads of experience, they know exactly how to do this. As an individual, this can be very difficult. So I would advise you, if you are going to do something like this, to really look up your country's import regulations, because the seller will be able to procure the CITES, phytosanitary and export for you. You will have to pay for that, but then often as a buyer you will need to do an import. And lots of people will say, well, I've never done that and I got plants into the country. That's fine. You are taking a risk though, and that's not the correct way or the legal way to do it. So I can't comment on that. I can't speak from a position of authority on this. I'm just sharing what has happened to me and the experiences that I've had with importing from outside of my region. And at the time, my region was European Union. So please just be super careful with that sort of thing. With that said, Ecuagenera, reputable company, mixed reputation. These plants have been in transit for a while. They're recent imports. We can expect that they might be quite stressed. They've come all the way from Ecuador, and then they've gone to Germany, and then they've come from Germany to me. So let's just get on with the unboxing now that I've had this little chat about importing plants. I'm sorry for anyone who's familiar with the process. That was probably a rather boring start, and obviously I hope that you just skipped over it. But for anyone not familiar, I hope that that's clarified a little bit some of the questions that I've got about getting plants into the country. Basically, it's very difficult, and there's a good reason for that. We don't want destruction of natural species. So this is 2 plants. I think what they've done is put 2 boxes and then stapled them together, and then Rolk have sent this on to me. I'm just going to fast forward through me trying to get into this, because we all know that I take ages with this sort of thing. Okay, we're finally in. They had taped and stapled this box to within an inch of its life. So, shall I tell you before I unbox these what they are? I think I will, because we can prepare ourselves mentally. So, there are 2 very, very rare orchid species. Now these are the Cleisocentron, Merrillianum and gokusingii. I'm really sorry if I pronounced them incorrectly, I tried. Merrillianum and the gokusingii are a type of vandaceous orchid with some of the most true blue flowers in the orchid kingdom. Now, you may say orchids don't have blue flowers, they have purple flowers, and I would agree with you for the most part. There are a few very rare orchid species that do have blue flowers. I'm told the bluest is an Australian native terrestrial orchid, and I can't remember the name. I was told by Michael, and apparently that is the bluest orchid flower. I think these are a close second though. These are probably the bluest that you are going to see. This is a hybrid between the 2. So it's not a species, and these 2 species are actually quite difficult to tell apart in the first place. I'll put a picture up on screen, and you can probably see why I'm so excited about this. So this is a hybrid between those 2 very rare species. They're actually a cool growing vandaceous type. And apparently some of the cultural information I've been able to find involves a lot of moss and keeping them wet at all times. So just trying to figure out, I don't think there's anything in there. I think that is just all padding. Okay, they are very small. So this is what I have. This is all the invoice slip. So I placed this order on the 3rd of July. They ship once a month, so these were the last 2. And the reason I got 2 is because the stress of importing plants can often mean that you have a chance of losing the plant. And I have seen some very bad reviews for Ecuagenera. And I think Michael and Todd on here will have both had some very bad experiences. So I was quite nervous about this. This is a plant passport. Just to show you. So it's a risk. Importing plants is always a risk. I have very mixed views on this because I'm a little bit of a pushover as a buyer anyway. There are some things that really tick me off, and if the seller kind of crosses those lines and is rude, I won't go back to them. but I think you can probably, if you know me, you know that I'm relatively forgiving with most sellers. For certain things, I'm happy to take a small plant that's healthy. I'm happy to take a rare plant that's smaller than I was expecting. I'm happy to take even a rootless plant if it's rare enough and I want it badly enough. And I think I can save it. And it wasn't too expensive. So I'm assuming these will have been sent bare roots. Oh, okay. These, oh, this, I was expecting something a lot smaller than this actually. Let me just, so I'm not sure what sort of root system we're going to have on this plant. It could be terrible, but look, sorry, before we get into this, are these spikes, please? Oh my goodness. There's no way, even if they are spikes, there's no way they're going to survive the, sorry, this is like, I was preparing myself for a half dead plant, I've got to be honest, but the actual shipping times in transit have not been too much. So I guess it very much depends on the import process that plant goes through and the health of it to start with. Yeah, I can't recommend or anything these as a seller because I have seen some very bad experiences people have had. I'm prepared to try them as a buyer because they had something very rare, but there is a reason I didn't buy all of the plants I wanted from them, and I filled my basket and it was like a £200 order because they have amazing Cattleyas. There's a reason I just went for this one species that I really wanted, and there's a reason I bought 2 of them, expecting the worst. I think we are in pretty good shape here. Okay, so what they've done is, I assume when they wrapped this to send, they wrapped it in very slightly damp sphagnum. We have another little plant starting there. So I assume that this, upon shipping, was just very, very slightly damp, but had had most of the moisture squeezed out or dried out from it, because this is now like crispy, crispy dry. So I'm just going to put this in here. Just to one side, I've got a little vase, and I'm just going to pour a mix of rain mix and seaweed in there. And that's obviously going to get wicked up by the moss in there. So, I mean, so far so good. This is pretty awesome. Maybe I didn't need to order 2 plants, although this second one is feeling a bit smaller. So originally I was eyeing these up, and they put the Germany sign on there, I guess, so they know where they're sending it to. And then they went out of stock, and then I got a notification they came back into stock on the same weekend. They were having a 20% off. So in total, I paid $65 for the 2 plants with the 20% off, plus $20, sorry, it's all in dollars, shipping, plus $5 import fees. Rolk received these on Friday. I think I got a notification that UPS would be delivering on Monday. So, okay, this one is smaller. Again, it does to me look like it's spiking. It's a little nubbed here, but definitely smaller, but still looking very healthy. I just love these leaves. They're absolutely beautiful. Let's see what state we're in inside. Again, we've got a little plant passport on the actual outside of the thing, which is something that got brought in recently. I don't know if Rolk actually had, I assume that these just got sent to Rolk in the box, and Rolk just stuck a sticker on and sent it on to me and didn't look in. So I assume that this was put on by the Ecuagenera packers. So I'm actually, like, this one's got a much thicker stem. It's very, very thick and chubby. Again, we've got, I assume these are spikes, but there is a chance that they are new growths or keikis, but to me they look like they could be spikes. I don't know if they'll survive. Again, this moss is crispy dry, so it must have just been wrapped around the roots, slightly damp, for them to be able to wrap it like this and then dried, but we have good roots. So again, I'm just going to pop that in to soak. And I'm going to leave them for a good few hours. They've had a rough time. They've come from a long way, although they've not actually been in shipping too long, longer than I usually have to wait for plants, but not too long. Got to Rolk on the 30th of July. I know the export said like end of July, so I'm not sure when they left Ecuador. It doesn't stay on here. I didn't receive any shipping notification from them at all at Ecuagenera. Let's see if it says how long they've been in shipping for. Just out of interest. I placed the order at the beginning of July and no, it doesn't. So we don't actually know when they left Ecuador. I would say within 2 weeks, certainly. One is smaller than the other. Both have, by the looks of it, relatively good roots. I'm not going to try and take the moss off. At least I'm not going to take it off until it's been soaked and saturated and the roots have got nice and pliable. Just going to top this up a little bit more so that the moss soaks faster. Obviously when it's really packed like this, it doesn't tend to soak very well. So that's pretty awesome. I'm like super happy, and I do wonder if these might be spikes. Certainly could be. So let's just leave them to soak for a while and come back later and I will pot them up. So exciting. They're beautiful. So happy to have them. I'm just going to discuss what I would think about doing as a potting mix. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to do a different setup for each of these to try and figure it out. So first things first, I have made loads of ventilation holes around the middle of this pot instead of normal flushing holes. They're going to be in semi-hydro. I am going to make sure that they are well ventilated because gas exchange, the more gas exchange with a vandaceous type, the better. And I am completely new to the species, and there are very few cultural references. There are a few out there on different forums and on, mainly on forums. So I'm going to treat it more like an Arides than anything else, but cooler growing. So I'm not going to put this in the orchid room until I get to know it a little bit better. So one of them is going to go into a mixture of leca and lava rock, and one is going to go into a mixture of leca, lava rock and ceramis. The ceramis is going to replicate a more mossy type of environment for them. As a finer media, it's going to hold more moisture. So we'll come back and take a look at them once they've soaked for a while. So what I'm going to do is actually put some microfiber in the pots, and I'm going to run that up through from the semi-hydro reservoir up through the pot to maintain a moist top layer, because these guys, from what I've read, like to be moist at all times, don't like drying out. And I've read of somebody saying that they tried treating them more like a Vanda and letting it dry between waterings and nearly killed theirs. So I'm just going to run some microfiber cloths up through the pots just to add some extra moisture in. It's going to be more of a thing with the semi-hydro setup, but also with the ceramis it'll help a little bit too. So these are kind of the two potting mixes. They're essentially the same, but one has ceramis and one doesn't. So this is my semi-hydro with a mix of leca, bottom layer of leca, because we don't want to waste lava rock in the reservoir since it's got those moisture retentive properties. We want them higher up in the pot where it's going to be drier. And then also same, but with some ceramis mixed in, which will hold even more moisture. So these guys have been soaking for a little while, so I am just going to try and take some of the moss away from the root ball and see what we're looking like. We've had a few hours soaking. So let's have a little look at this one first. I mean, it looks pretty good to me. They're all alive. So it looks like they were grown in seedling bark before they were unpotted to export. It's got a couple of little basal growths. A couple of them, the leaves are dying off, but this one is starting a new root. So that looks pretty good. Just going to get the next one now. No signs of pests or anything, so yeah, so these have just been wrapped in the moss. New root tips starting, which is good. Look at them. Or is that a new growth? Who knows what that is? It looks kind of like a keiki that's growing downwards. I thought it was new roots at first, but to me it almost looks, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It totally is. Look, it's got a little leaf there. Well, that's awkward. Gonna have to, it's slightly flexible, so I'm just gonna have to like tilt it when I pot it and try and lay it on top of the media and hope it doesn't rot. It's kind of annoying. Really good size. I was expecting much smaller. They're super plump and chunky. Just going to go and rinse the root system off at the tap and be right back. Okay, the fact that there was seedling grade bark on the roots of these guys gives me a bit more confidence in my research and media choices. So let's do the little awkward one first, shall we? And I think this one is going to go, because it's smaller, into the Ceramis mix. Maybe give it a little bit more of a head start. Take some of this media out to start. We're a bit high. I don't want to put the new roots into the reservoir, so I'm just resting them above where I've drilled these aeration holes, which will also be our flushing holes. And then I've put this microfiber cloth into the bottom of the pot, and it's coming up through the media. So I'm just going to kind of, maybe a bit thick, just kind of drape it up to the top like that, just to have this little like thing of extra moisture running through the top. Hopefully that will be okay for the little guy. And then just going to fill around with media. I think I'm going to have to get a plastic stake because they aren't staying up in the pot very well. Just went and got one of the plastic stakes from Rolk. I've got some very large ones of these, so I actually just cut it in half because I couldn't find another one that was available. So smaller half. And I'm just going to cable tie it to the stake. Just helps when you're you have an orchid to have it staked securely until it's established in the pot, because that way any movement kind of stops new roots growing quite as well, I've found. So now we're just going to have to deal with this little awkward new growth. So basically the issue I have is that new growth is probably going to stay either damp the way I've potted it, and potentially rot. So I have a lid that these buckets came from. I'm just going to cut a tiny little bit of plastic. I'm just going to pop it underneath the new growth like that. Just elevating it, and obviously the plastic isn't going to get damp, so it'll just stop that little new growth from touching the media while it's growing. It's free at the base, you can see, so it still can get roots down. Just going to elevate that slightly, almost use this bit of lacquer to like a little bit more upward in the pot, like that. And then the new growth can get down from the base, and as this grows it will angle itself upwards, but this will just prevent any rot issues in the meantime. Sometimes you have to get a little bit creative with these kind of more awkward orchids. And then I'm actually just going to leave this with this sort of media mix and this sort of layering. Pop a little bit more Ceramis just there. And this is what the mix looks like. I'm just going to use the label, just kind of cover up that microfiber a little bit. So this is going to stay pretty moist in here. The type of media, the fact that we've got a microfiber wick basically to help distribute the moisture more evenly, and obviously protect that. And I'm just going to snip, I have cleaned these scissors, I'm just going to snip this little root off there. So that is that done. I'll clean out a little bit of media on that little new growth there. So that's that done and repotted. And now we're just going to do the next one. So this one's just leca and lava rock. So we've got the wick just going there. That's going down to the bottom and will be coming up the top. So I'm just going to rest it like that. And then this one, since I've got the stakes here ready, I'm just going to stake it while I actually work with it. So we've got two new growths here and a new root tip there. So I'm just going to place the stake away from that new root tip so I don't like smush it by accident. So those are my Cleisocentron, Merrillianum crossed with gokusingii, all potted up, one into a mix of Ceramis, lava and leca, and one into a mix of lava and leca, both with microfiber wicks running through the pots to try and increase moisture to the top. And I'm not putting any top layers on, we're just going to see how they do. I'm going to keep them in a cooler environment, not cool, I don't have a cool environment, but we're going to be keeping them in a more intermediate room without the extremes that the conservatory has, because I just think that they might struggle a bit. And we'll see how they do, and I think that we might have some flower spikes on these guys, so I'll keep you updated. The next step with these, this has currently got tap water in from where I had the leca soaking in tap water, so I will take these to the sink, flush through thoroughly, and then flush with RO water and top back up with my nutrient mix that they were soaking in, which is a mixture of rain mix and seaweed, and then leave them alone and see how they do Thank you so much for watching today. I hope this video was useful or interesting, and I hope that I've added an orchid to your wish list maybe one day. I'm super excited to have this species. I'm super hopeful that these make it and do well, and I'll keep you all posted on their adaptation and how they do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys all later. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular updates. See you all later. Bye!